Tom Harker was a very unlucky child. For one thing, he lived in the days before either toilets or toilet roll had been invented. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you what that means.
This, however, was nothing compared to his chief trouble. You see, when Tom was just a baby, both his parents had been killed in a nasty accident involving a really hot cup of coffee and someone who was running with scissors. And since this made Tom an orphan, he was sent to live in an orphanage.
The orphanage was run by a very kind lady whose name was Mrs. O'Flynn, and while she was in charge, Tom was really quite happy there. When Tom was 6, however,
something terrible happened. Mrs. O'Flynn got word that her elderly mother had run away to sea and become a pirate. It was not uncommon in those days for people to run away to sea and become pirates, but this was not considered a respectable way for elderly ladies to behave. "That's ridiculous," Mrs. O'Flynn was heard to say when she got the news. "A pirate's life is no life for an old woman. All that yo-ho-hoing will play havoc with her varicose veins, and as for the bottles of rum, they're a dreadful idea. She's a terror, my old mother, when she's got some rum inside her. Anyway, she'll miss her bingo. There's no bingo on a pirate ship. I'll have to go and find her and talk her out of it."
Tom was very sad when Mrs. O'Flynn left. He was even sadder when Mr. Beadle came to take her place. Mr. Beadle was a large, round man with a high, strident voice. His forehead stuck out like a caveman's, and his eyes were small and round and piggy, as indeed was his nose. A huge set of sideburns covered his cheeks and jaw, leaving only a small gap through which his little fleshy chin poked out. In short, he looked like a bad-tempered, hairy-faced, prehistoric pig. Of course, you should never judge someone's character by their looks, for the ugliest face can hide the kindest heart. However, when you read in a story that someone has little piggy eyes, you can be almost sure that they are bad through and through. And so it was with Mr. Beadle.
To begin with, he was a tremendously mean man and would spend as little as possible on food for the orphans. Or on saucepans for that matter, which meant that one large saucepan had to serve as both cooking pot and laundry pan, for in those days people cleaned their dirty clothes by boiling them. This meant that there was never enough to eat, and what little there was tasted of smelly socks. In fact, once by mistake, the children actually were given smelly socks for dinner, and nobody noticed the difference. The next morning they all had to wear lumpy porridge on their feet because there were no socks left. Worse than the food, however, were the punishments. Mr. Beadle rather enjoyed being horribly unfair. "There's no such thing as a good child," he would say, narrowing his little piggy eyes. "Only a naughty child who hasn't yet been caught."
On this basis, he punished all the children every day, whether they'd done anything wrong or not, and he took great delight in thinking up new punishments. On one occasion, Tom had to spend the entire afternoon with a small dog strapped to his forehead. Another time, he had to scrub out the oven with his toothbrush and then brush his teeth. On yet another day, Mr. Beadle tied Tom's legs together, hung him upside down from a tree, and threw soggy bread rolls at him.
As if that wasn't enough, while Tom was being punished, Mr. Beadle's horrible pet bird would sit on his ear and pull his hair. This bird, Mr. Beadle's constant companion, looked exactly like a parrot, but Mr. Beadle insisted it was just a very colourful and talkative blackbird and got extremely cross if anyone argued. Mr. Beadle treated the blackbird, which he called Blackbird, much better than he treated the orphans. He never gave it smelly socks for breakfast, for instance, nor did he ever throw soggy bread rolls at it. He did, however, have an odd habit of grabbing the bird's beak to stop it from speaking, as if he was worried it was going to give away some dreadful secret. As a result, Blackbird was often heard to squawk phrases such as, "Pieces of 'em! Aye, aye, Cap'n!" and
Yo ho ho and a bottle of milk.
It was all very suspicious.
It was hardly surprising, therefore, that Tom dreamed of running away to sea like Mrs. O'Flynn's mother. What was surprising, however, was that when he finally did run away to sea, it happened by accident. What was even more surprising was that the accident was caused by a bucket of herrings.